Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today's subject is about workaholism, and it's overtly clear from the name that it's work addiction. Something like alcohol addiction is called alcoholism, so definitely work addiction is called workaholism, and it's an intimate subject that might be related to Carusi. Workaholism as a term was coined in 1971 and described as the compulsion or the uncontrollable need to work incessantly, continuously. Some key commonalities across many definitions were used to form comprehensive definition that includes the following components. First of all, feeling compelled to work because of internal pressure. Usually this is due to certain personality trait. This person usually feels that he is unsafe without working, maybe to prove to himself that he is a strong, independent person, or might be trying to prove to higher authorities and the responsible that he is an irreversible worker and cannot be replaced. In any way, when one feels overwhelmed during work, usually he loses confidence, may become angry, may become irritable, overdrawn. Second point, having persistent thoughts. But when persistent thoughts about work when not working. So workaholism is not a matter of problem during working hours. No, it's not just long hours on the job. It may disturb and distort the whole biological rhythm of one's life. For example, it can deprive him of good sleeping, for example, or interfere with social activities. Definitely, this might be repercussed on his own life and even more on his work, with an expected end result that is going to kill himself after depression, or even to hurt others, like a friend, like a colleague. Uh, Third point is working beyond what's reasonably expected of the worker as established by the requirements of the job or basic economic needs. I can do more and more, okay, for longer hours and during weekend. This despite the potential for negative consequences. Usually it can be found in martial issues during military life, okay. uh, so we can realize that workaholism is a real mental health problem or real mental health condition. Like any other addiction, work addiction is the inability to stop the behavior. We said before that he is stressed to work incessantly in a continuous way. So it's inability to stop that behavior, like addiction of alcohol. The alcoholic cannot stop drinking alcohol. In same way, workaholic is enabled to stop working incessantly or continuously. So he's usually speaking with himself and telling himself that I am successful. The work addiction is often driven by job success. Usually, he imagines that he is successful, even if he is not. Second, it's common in people described as perfectionists. Those people usually saying about themselves, I'm perfect in everything. Third point, much like someone with a drug addiction, definitely just like alcoholic, a person with work addiction achieves high from working. This leads them to keep repeating the behavior that gives them this high. Again, just like the alcoholic feels that he is high with continuous drinking alcohol. The workaholic also usually feels the same. He feels that he is high with a continuous work. So he is speaking to himself, I'm successful, I'm perfect in verifying everything, and I usually feel high in work. So why should I stop working? Now, if we would like to speak about the causes of workaholism, Now, the first strong, I'm stressing on strong, the first strong cause of workaholism is personality trait. Personality traits usually reflect people's characteristic patterns of thoughts, feeling, and behavior. So, if you would like to describe a personality trait of some person, we should speak about how should he or how he thinks, how does he feel, and how does he behave in any situation. The first one, or we say it as terrible trio of three things, are intimately related: narcissism, perfectionism, and as a consequence, is workaholism. The narcissistic personality disorder, one of several types of personality disorders, which is a mental condition in which people have an inflated sense of their own importance. I'm super. I feel I'm more important than any other person. There is a deep need and excessive attention and admiration, troubled relationships, and lack of empathy for others. Usually, he is a senseless person. Usually, not almost. Uh, the second point is perfectionism. Perfectionism is often defined as the need to be or appear to be perfect, or even to believe that it's possible to achieve perfection. It's typically viewed as positive trait, sometimes is viewed as positive trait rather than error. People may be or may use the term healthy perfectionism. I'm speaking about the positive perfectionism to describe or justify perfectionistic behavior. Okay? Uh, we mentioned that personality trait is the first and the most strong cause behind workaholism. And the first of that personality trait is narcissism. Now, we can speak about the characters of narcissistic person. First, emptiness. Usually those persons have nothing to do or have nothing to know. They are empty. Most commonly, they are nonsense. Feeling self-importance higher than any other person. Self-obsession. They are obsessive towards everything, towards things, towards persons, towards occasions. Uh, on the other side, they are feeling that they are controlling everything, they are supervising everything, or at least they must supervise everything. Usually, they are big liars, selfish. Usually, they love themselves regardless the benefit of others. On the other side, they are impulsive, arrogant. Definitely, they must be arrogant. If a person inflating his feelings of self-importance and he is controlling everything and he's selfish, definitely he must be arrogant. With lack of empathy, he doesn't have any empathy with others. Usually those persons add to the community nothing. They are passive. After all, such characters emotionally they must be shallow. Exhibitionistic. They usually want to show to every person that how important they are, and cruel, secretive, keeping secrets. Okay, narcissism is positively related to workaholism overall, as well as to the components of workaholism known as impatience. Such persons, he seems to be in a hurry and racing against the clock in a compulsive way. It's hard for him to relax when he's not working. That's why, because such person usually keeping thinking during sleeping, during spending some time in clubs, or even during watching cinema with their families, and so on. Uh, the second point in personality trait as a cause of workaholism is perfectionism. Okay, what are the characters of perfectionists? Usually they are thinking in a way all or nothing. Either I'm going to do everything, every point, even every small detail in the mission, or I'm not going to do anything. So he is thinking in a way of all or none. And he usually being highly critical. Definitely, as a result of point number one, he's usually highly critical. He's usually criticizing even himself. I'm not so good to achieve the target. I'm not good to reach to the most successful achievement. And even usually he's criticizing other person. Third point is feeling pushed by fear. Definitely, a person thinking in that way, he is usually afraid of not doing the mission correctly or in an efficient way, and he is usually even fear feeling from others to criticize himself. Having unrealistic standards, such persons usually put to themselves higher standards, super standards. If a mission should be done at level 9 to 10, he is thinking that he must do it at a level of 20 or 30 in an unrealistic standard. This might be reflected on feeling fears, on feeling to be criticized by others. Uh, so that he is usually focusing only on the results. Most commonly, he is not interested in in the details, although he is thinking to do everything in a correct way and in a successful manner, but sometimes he ignores the details in between to achieve the results. That's why he's focusing usually to achieve super result 200% rather than to be 100%. Uh, that's why he's usually feeling depressed by unmet goals. A person set for himself super standards, unrealistic standards, and he's usually afraid of realizing such standards. So sometimes he is depressed and stressed. Definitely, he always have a feeling of failure, procrastination, defensiveness. Usually, he's trying to defend himself if he feels at some point, to explain that he is trying to do super job. By the end, such persons usually feel self-esteem because he is pressed, suppressed, and squeezed in his job. But let's say about healthy perfectionism. Healthy perfectionism can drive people to real success, to perform their best. But unhealthy perfectionism can lead to stress and anxiety, low self esteem, as we mentioned before, and other problems that can affect quality of life. So while perfectionism is not a psychological disorder, it's linked to anxiety and other mental health issues, for example, such as OCD. Perfectionist is someone who has personality trait or personality that strives for perfection. This by the end. This is often accomplished through focusing on imperfections and defects, trying to control situations, working hard, and or being critical of self or even of others. Okay, we mentioned that personality trait is the first and the most strong cause behind workaholism. Now, the second cause of workaholism is compulsive needs. How to achieve success in life. That person is usually thinking how to achieve success in my life. But he has what's known as compulsive needs. Compulsive needs usually drive a person to have repetitive behaviors that he feels he has to perform for great success and marvelous achievements. So he's usually doing some behaviors many times, today, tomorrow, this month, and next month, this year, and next year, in a trial to perform the greatest success, and how he is going to achieve marvelous achievements. Because of their obsession, such persons are constantly thinking about new opportunities and always moving in between different posts as they are expecting more and more benefits and success. Today he's attached to some company. After 1 month, he will join another company. Next year, he will go to another country. He's usually looking for the best. Sometimes those persons may adopt the Machiavelli way of thinking and behaviors. Machiavelli way says the result justifies the deal. I say sometimes, not always, not almost. The result justifies the deal that he may follow some illegal forms of behaviors to achieve better opportunity or to get better opportunity. Definitely, this may harm children in his family and destroys his family. Couples in workaholic, for example, in workaholic homes are more likely to divorce than the couples who have more balanced lives. For example, third cause of workaholism is to escape a disaster as a coping mechanism. Just for example, as losing a loved person. When we think of addiction after trauma, for example, or our mind directly goes to drugs, not our mind, the mind of other persons, goes directly to drugs, to alcohol, to gambling, to be a gambler, or like women for for shopping, or like me for overeating, but rarely to workaholism that also can be an after effect or aftermath or post-traumatic effect. So grief, whether from trauma or major life changes, may also take form in workaholism. Anger and guilt feeling as depression, and more may be seen as uncomfortable feelings that one can escape by focusing on the tasks at hand. Working long hours in an attempt to distract oneself from facing uncomfortable or upsetting thoughts or feelings can be just as damaging as other unhealthy addiction. Same way, like an alcoholic damages and destroys his health, his health and his family by drinking alcohol, the alcoholic escapes from the reality he has by escaping to work and working over and over and over. As has been said, there are invisible scars and lesions among adults, such alcoholic children can be anticipated to bring to their careers of, I mean here to the careers of his family or his children. Uh, Fourth cause of workaholism is the same way in escaping trauma, to escape family problem. When a person suffers from prolonged trauma in his family, he lives in a continuous state of stress, for example, with no control over his life. He has a continuous problems with his wife, with his children. Work can become something he has control over or a means to escape his reality. He escapes from the disasters or from the troubles or from the mishaps that he has in his family to another form that he has a control. He doesn't have a control over his family troubles, but he can control over his work. So he tries to escape from the reality that he has to something else that he can have control over. It's a coping mechanism. Workaholism may be a relieving pattern to relieve their bad situation or using work as a way to ease or to ignore emotional issues and trauma he has in his families. After that all, the last cause that might be behind workaholism is community character. Community character that we don't have here in our Arabic communities for study. Community character in a culture where hard work is praised and putting in overtime is often expected, it can be difficult for any person to recognize work addiction. It's a common character among all the persons in such communities. For example, the Japanese work culture, for example, had been displaying signs of workaholism characterized by hard work, by discipline, by punctuality, by devotion, honesty, loyalty, everything in a good way, and team spirit as a natural norms and beliefs among such community. So nothing is known as workaholism in such community. Inclination towards overwork reflects the Japanese spirit. This is natural for them of group solidarity. So it's uncommon to find a person who may be different in that communities. Otherwise, he would be considered as an abnormal and odd. And even if he wants to be different, he will be incapable. Now I believe that we finished the causes of workaholism, and now we have to discuss the different styles of workaholism. The first style of workaholism is polemic style. Either I do it perfectly or not at all. It's something just as some people with eating disorder alternate between self-starvation and binging. The polemic workaholic style involves cyclic among delay, work binges, and exhaustion. Usually they have feeling of fear that they will not do the job perfectly and intolerance for the emotions connected with making mistakes. So that's why they are usually worrying obsessively about work and kicking themselves for not doing it. So that's why we call it polemic style. Second, relentless style. It has to be finished yesterday. I must not wait for today. So people in this group get an adrenaline kick. Take care, adrenaline kick from tight deadlines and start things too soon rather than too late. That's why it's called relentless style. I must do it yesterday, not today. This style also is characterized by impulsivity. Definitely, such person must be impulsive. They don't say no for everything. They usually say no for any person. They work too fast for careful thoughts, reflection, and attention to details. Third point is Savoring Style. It's a slow, methodical, and overly scrupulous. Savoring style, in some way or another, is something like tasting style. He tastes the job before he's doing it. These workaholics are slow. They taste everything before doing it. Think how should be the method of doing such a job. Thinking about how systems or what systems they should follow. That's why they are systematic and overly are trustworthy. They have trouble letting go of work. They are strongly linked to the job. They get hooked savoring a project the way some alcoholics might savor a fine wine. The alcoholic must taste or must savor the alcohol before he tastes. Such persons of savoring style of workaholism usually trying to taste, to categorize, to systemize, to prioritize the job before he starts to work. This style is style of consummate perfectionism, the perfect perfectionism. See, the perfect perfectionism, where they are always afraid of failure. Fourth point, attention deficit style. Use the adrenaline of overwhelming work pressure as focusing device. Such people of this style live on the brink of chaos. and get him from the rush of new ideas. They start usually on an excess of existing projects that they never finish, but easily bored with follow through. They are rapidly getting bored of once they start such job or any mission. 2, 3, 4 days, they start to feel bored and start to look to another job or to another mission. So rarely they cannot finish any job. They are the hairy workaholics who click their nails on tabletops, play with their thumbs, and moving legs in meetings. Unlike polemic workaholics who cannot start a project and want to do everything perfectly, attention deficit workaholics start lots of projects, do them carelessly, and usually cannot finish one of them. Uh, the fifth style of workaholism is the defeatist style. They are always too busy to enjoy. Denies himself pleasure. This type of workaholism is one of the strongest drives of workaholism. He has a lot of excuses. I don't have enough time for myself or even for my family. I don't deserve it. Why? Because the work will accumulate or may be accumulating if I will take any time off. Those persons are usually pessimistic. They are looking over the world using black lenses or black eyes. Uh, the other type is saboteur style, usually distracted and obsessed by work, so they are usually destroying everything around them. Uh, this person might neglect his health. Why? Because no time to waste in doctor's office. And he is the same person who usually forget his wife's birthday. He is forgetting issues about his children in schools. Usually those persons misplaces some drive that has all of his presentation on it, but didn't take time to back it up. He has no time for doing anything except his work. That's why he is destroying everything around himself, and those persons are called saboteur or demolisher. Uh, The other or seventh type of workaholism is the self-punisher style. He's usually punishing himself. Why? Because he's usually taking no pain, no gain mentality to excess. It's one of the common styles or common causes of workaholism. Those persons' creed is nothing comes easy. No pain, no gain. Again, the creed of self-punisher is nothing comes easy, no pain, no gain. So it's fixed in his mind that he has to suffer pain to gain. They put themselves in ever increasingly risky situations. They are sure that situation will hurt him. I'll be the first to admit that effort. I'll be the first to do that job which nobody else can do it except me. And this is essential for my success. Even sometimes, some of those persons have reached the creed or believe that they are superhuman, that they have superhuman ability to cope with pain, and nobody or no one else can do it, or no one else can suffer that pain or that stress. Uh, he's usually punishing himself because this is his own creed. The other type is the Shahid style, the Martyr style. He is doing everything to save others. He is sacrificing himself and his soul and his life for saving others. Even when opportunities to reduce the workload or to reduce that pain or to reduce that stress, to get relief for a while or for some time, the martyr declines the help, he refuses the help. What difference will it make to me? I will do it. I will do it. Why? Because I'm the only person that can sacrifice himself and his soul for saving others. Is usually thinking that way. Assuming that pain and stresses are normal part of life, he is usually considering that pain is usual and regular part of his life to achieve the utmost success. And that's why he has to sacrifice himself as a martyr to achieve success, not for him, for anybody around himself. Uh, that's all about the martyr time, anyhow. Okay, now after such journey, we have to discuss what possible be the outcomes of workaholism. As we see, there must be a balance in between work, careers, business, performance, responsibility on one side, and the other side is the the life and the health, the family, the friend, and the happiness, my own happiness. I must gain at least some equilibrium in between work and career on one side, my health, my life, my family, my friends, my own happiness on the other side. An imbalance, why? Because an imbalance between the personal life and work life can have serious or adverse effects on the health and well-being. This imbalance usually occurs, we can find it, when boundaries between the professional life and personal life are not clearly demarcated. There's demarcation in between both sides. Work-life imbalance leads to emotional stress, depression, and anxiety. Relationships and friendships could fall apart as the people around feel neglected. Definitely. Typically, workaholics usually don't have many friends. It's expected. Or hobbies. They don't have hobbies. Why? Because they don't have time to work, or at least they are telling or convincing themselves that they have no time for getting friends and hobbies. Their personal relationships are in a disarray. They have difficulty with intimacy, even with their wives. Why? Because work is always on their mind. Symptoms of workaholism: those people may simply appear committed to their job or the success of their projects, putting in long hours at the office even when not needed. This is the first symptom. He believes that he must be existing in the office even if they don't need him. Second, losing sleep to engage in work projects or finish tasks. We discussed it before. Being obsessed with the work-related success. Having intense fear of failure at work. We discussed all those items before, all those points. Being paranoid about work-related performance. Disintegrating personal relationship because of work. Having defensive attitude toward others about their work. Why? Because he's usually thinking that he is super. He's usually perfect. Using work as a way to avoid relationships, or sometimes to escape reality in his family. Working to cope with feeling of guilt or depression as a sort of punishment. And at last, working to avoid dealing with crises like health, like divorce, or like financial troubles. Now, how can we diagnose or how can we detect a person with alcoholism, or how can we detect workaholic? We have what's known as Belgian work addiction scale. That scale was devised by clinical psychologists at the University of Belgium in Norway. After research testing 12,000 Norwegian workers from 25 different industries. Based around the answers of such 12,000 persons to just 7 simple questions to identify work addiction. The scale rates the kind of behavior displayed by workaholics, behavior similar to that shown in all kinds of addicts, from drug users to alcoholics and gamblers. And all items are scored on the following scale from never, rarely, sometimes, often, always. Now, what are the items or what are the 7 items that should be asked to rate the alcoholics? First, you think of how you can free up more time to work. How much time you can feel that you have to spend or you can spend out of your work. Second, you work in order to reduce guilt, helplessness, depression, and anxiety. Do you feel that? You have been told to reduce your time working but ignore those requests. You spend much more time working than you initially intend. You become stressed when you are not able to work. And lastly, you lower the importance of hobbies, fun activities, and fitness in exchange for more work time. And you work so much that it has negatively impacted your health. According to the answers about such questions, the answers are scored on a scale. We can see it in the following. So according to the answers of the previous 7 questions, we can use the Belgian work addiction scale. These items are measured on a scale of never, rarely, sometimes, often, always. So there are 7 questions graded or scored according to 5 levels. If a person answered often or always to at least 4 or 7 items, he may have work addiction. Now, what about the expectation of the outcome? Like most addiction, work addiction will get worse over time until person seeks help. People may experience, first, burnout. This is a common result of work addiction due to working to the point of physical and mental exhaustion. Burnout can definitely lead to extreme stress. It can damage relationships with friends, within the family, and even drug abuse. It might lead to drug abuse. Without treatment, a person with work addiction could isolate themselves from friends and family. They can lead to death by suicide or by killing themselves. Waiting too long to get help could damage these relationships permanently. I mean here with the family or with the friends. Second point or second outcome or second end result of workaholism is chronic stress. A consistent sense of feeling pressured and overwhelmed over a long period of time that sometimes results from a constant working that can be hard on physical health. Third, weakened immune system. It's an expected end result or outcome of workaholism. Weakened immune system with definitely increased risk of infection and diseases. Not infections only, diseases, even cancers. Speaking about myself, I experienced some sort of stress 10 or 11 or 12 years ago. After 1 or 2 years after such stress, I get psoriasis, and I'm suffering from it till now. Definitely, this is a consequence of weakened immune system. But fortunately, work addiction is manageable. The stress itself was managed, but the suffer. I'm speaking about myself. The suffer. I'm still suffering of it till now. Now speaking about the treatment options of workaholism. Fortunately, work addiction doesn't need the same level of treatment as drug addiction. However, it's possible that initially one will require an inpatient or outpatient rehabilitation program to manage his behavior. While a rehabilitation program is more common in drug and alcohol addiction, severe work addiction can also be helped by such intensive approaches. We can say that the best interventions to help workaholics is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is group therapy. So it has been said that cognitive behavioral therapy or group therapy or group support therapy is one of the best management ways for workaholism. Also, there are many: rational emotive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, family therapy, meditation awareness training, mental health assessment for mental disorders like, for example, COD, because sometimes among such workaholics, they have OCDs. So if we don't treat and manage OCD, no way to improve the state of workaholism. Uh, Common general ways to improve or to ameliorate the impact or the effect of workaholism is to include fun in your schedule, allow yourself to enjoy things other than work, reevaluate how you value your work, accurately assess the return on investment of your work. Don't be on call all the time. Don't keep your phone behind the pillow. Strive for efficiency, not perfection. And this is a very important point. But ultimately, I believe that all such ways are theoretical. Anyhow, uh, after that, the last point is a question conveyed for all of you. Are you workaholic? I believe that more than 90% of all will be workaholic, and all of us are in need of treatment and management. Wish you best of luck, inshallah. See you soon in another presentation.